Hello and welcome to this video on what's new in the 2026-1 release from Claritest team, which is part of the Claritest group. So key updates for this release are Claritest rebranding, which I'll just sort of give an overview of that. PROBPICK, which is a new water bottom picking application for ultra high resolution seismic data. Enhanced data visualization and QC from our new SeisViewer application. Improved velocity model export from the Tomo 3D application, and a new Seg-Y to Claritas NMO format velocity conversion utility. So I'll just give you a brief overview and present some of these new updates, and I will start with the Claritest rebrand. As you'll see with the launcher and associated applications, we have undergone a bit of a rebranding exercise for the Claritest software. So part of this transition to the Claritest group brand, Globe Claritest is now known simply as Claritest. This release includes updates to product branding throughout the software, including updated Claritest logo, which you can see both on the help manual page there and on the actual launcher itself. Refreshed visual styling in line with the Claritest group brand guidelines. Updated copyright and company references, and updated contact and email domains. There are no changes to product functionality, licensing, file formats or workflows as a result of the rebrand. Claritest continues to deliver the same processing capabilities and project compatibility as previous versions. The Claritest website is now hosted within the Claritest Group website at claritestgroup.com. Existing web addresses and will automatically redirect to the new site, and no action is required from users. Please direct future inquiries to support@claritestgroup.com or info@claritestgroup.com. Emails sent to previous addresses will be monitored during the transition period to ensure continuity of support. So hopefully you'll appreciate the new branding. I think most users often just refer to Claritest as Claritest rather than the old full name. So for most people it probably won't be a big difference, but hopefully will be a little bit more visually appealing for users. One of the key components of the current release, the 2026-1 release, is the new PROBPICK module. Previously for UHR datasets, we were utilizing the first break picking algorithms incorporated in the SV application and the FBQC repick application to pick the water bottoms, which are required for the deghosting and COSA-statics modules that Claritest has. This was okay, but because it was interactive process, meant processing a large number of lines was more problematic than you'd want. So we looked at other ways of improving the picking of water bottoms, because whilst the first break picking tools are good, they're not optimized for water bottom picking. So our developer, Dr. Mark Henderson, created the PROBPICK module, which is using various probability methods to pick and optimize the water bottom pick on UHR datasets. Give you a quick sort of overview of the documentation. There's a fast start guide. So typically we'd recommend leaving all the parameters at their default settings, and the pick parameter should be set to no if there are no picks. So if you haven't run the first break picking method, you have no picks, then the pick parameter should be set to no. And then run the data set through, and you'll see from the log file that basically it works through each of the methods in the PROBPICK module, one after the other, to calculate the different probabilities for each method type, and hopefully give you an optimized water bottom pick that you can use for your processing. So you can see for the input data form that this is a input and process module. So you give it your input data set, you keep on all the different probability methods you want to use. So in this case we've just turned off the pick option, and we're leaving the probability parameters for each of the methods at their defaults. So obviously if we did have first break time header populated from first break picker or the FBQC repick NN or TF headers available, we could select those from the drop down list. and use those instead. So relatively easy to run. We are planning on optimizing the S application so it utilizes RAM more efficiently and also hopefully speed it up. And our final aim is to integrate PROBPICK, HRD Ghost and HR Static into a single flow such that users who are working on UHR datasets can effectively run all of these applications in a simple and unified flow rather than having to run individual processing steps for each part. So I'll show you some results on this using this application, which is the new SeisViewer application. Let's A-line. So we have some shot gathers, and then if I select header overlays and graph, header overlay settings, move to first break time from there. So we're going to display the PPK mean pick, so that's the probability pick, the mean pick, which is the mean pick of all those probability options, and that's the one you'll generally use. And then we'd have 2 standard deviations high and 2 standard deviations low displayed as well. So obviously where there's a dead trace, it's not creating a pick, and you can see that the picks, which is the blue line, seems to be tracking the water bottom quite nicely. I will zoom in onto one shot, and you can see the picks pretty reasonable, probably more consistent than say the picks would be using the first break picker. So looking quite good. Can move along the line, feel for how the picker's behaving. We can also display that pick header in the aerial or Condor applications so we can get a global view of what the pick's like, and if necessary go in and see if we need to optimize in certain areas if the pick's not as good as we'd like it to be. It's been tested on a number of different data sets and trained on quite a few data sets, so we're reasonably happy that the results are robust, but again we look forward to your feedback on this new module. The other key component of this release is the new seismic data viewer, SeisViewer, which can be seen on the seismic data tab of the launcher with the new button SeisViewer up here. So this has capability to display pre and post stack seismic data and 2D and 3D stack data sets as well. So what I have here is a inline stack section, and I have 2 stacks present to display. So one is a dataset after denoise, surface consistent decon and statics, and the other is after 5D interpolation. So 2 distinct points in the sequence. So I've got inlines displayed, I've got a toggle switch between the 2 different volumes and a slider bar where I can move to different inlines in the section. You can also see that the crossline time slice buttons are currently timed out. That's because I've already created or launched the crossline and time slice display. And again we have the slider bar at the bottom and the toggle between the 2 volumes. So again I can toggle between the 2 volumes. You can see that the inline moves as well at the same time. And again I have the time slices available. Again toggle switch between the 2 different volumes and a slider bar to select the time slice I want to look at. And again I can toggle between the 2 different volumes. What you might find with larger data sets or larger stack volumes is if they exceed, the size of the volume exceeds the amount of RAM you have available on the machine, you will be asked to select an inline increment to display. So we'll try and manage your data set quite effectively. So that's one of the key additional parts of this processing, or the viewer this time round. So any of the analysis displays and zoom windows are only available on the inline display and not the other displays. And I can create the rulers, analyze the data, look at zoom windows, etc., add autocorrelation displays and things like that if I want to. And again the display parameters in terms of traces per inch or traces per centimeter and time scale are all controlled on the inline display only. So So I'll close that one down. I'll display some of the other new functionality on different applications or different windows. So again, I've got a seismic viewer window open here. Again, I've got two volumes. One of the new functions in this is for the zoom window. I can create the zoom here, and it creates my zoom window over here. If you notice on the zoom window grab screen, there's now corner points, so they can be grabbed and moved to another location, and you can see that that's moved with it. And so I can move that zoom window around as I want to. So if I want to change where I'm zoomed in, then it's relatively easy. I don't have to close the window down and redraw. And if I take an analysis window, say frequency spectrograph, for instance, I can click on the window and it will create the analysis window within that existing zoom location. So if I take a frequency spectrograph window, for instance, like that, I get my window, I get my analysis. If I then grab the corners and move that somewhere else, it will redraw the amplitude analysis in that location. And so I can move those windows around as I want to sort of better display what I'm looking at, and it will basically re-display at each point. So that's additional functionality we've added into the application this release. And then one other thing I'd like to show, how our graphing capability has been improved and updated for this release, particularly around something along the lines of looking at angle mutes in Claritas. So you can see I've got a CDP gather here, flattened with our best current NMO correction. Now I can manually go through the header overlays, settings, parameters to configure the mutes, which would look something like that. So I can add my mutes as I want and overlay them. Or I can just use Control A to basically find all the angle mutes that are present in the data set and overlay them and fill the portion below that angle mute down to the next angle mute with the color, overlay color. So you can see that we can produce this nice display showing the angle mutes and then the different corridors that angle is preserving. So when you're selecting your near, mid, far angle ranges you want to apply to the data, it's relatively easy to sort of get an idea of what additional information we're preserving on the near, mids and fars as we go across the gather. So that fill option is available for whatever headers you're displaying. We've just tried to make it easier for angle mutes, that it basically understands what our angle times module creates and then overlays those quickly and effectively with the Control A function. If I go to the headers, overlay graphs, settings, basically what that is if you're doing it manually for other headers, it's just to use that fill under graph and set that to yes, and then it'll fill below your header that you're displaying with the color of the header that's currently being displayed. So those are some of the sort of major updates to the SeisViewer. We've taken the SeisViewer out of the beta stage, so it's now a production application, and so you can use that. We've maintained the View Seismic application as well, so you've got access to both. And there are a couple of things that we need to add to the application in the next release, which include the filter panels options available in SeisView, the PowerPoint generation again, which is available in SeisView, which is currently available here, and pseudo trace overlays. So they're being worked on at the moment and should be available in sort of initial beta releases for the 2026-2 release. but hopefully should give further functionality for this application. And then what we're hopefully going to do is take what we've learned with this and the viewer capability we've generated with this and start spreading that out across and replacing some other applications where they view seismic data. So that could well be pre-stack seismic analysis or a velocity analysis package, just to improve the look and feel of those applications. But any questions about the functionality, anything where you think we can still improve further, do let us know and we'd be happy to take that feedback on board. As part of the 2026-1 release, we have also made some updates to the Tomo 3D application. So hopefully you recognise the Tomo 3D application. This is the input file page where we're displaying the geometry and pics imported. We've run through the iterate process to update and improve the velocity model, and now we have our results tab here where we're displaying the velocity model that we've derived through the tomographic inversion process. So if I click on the save velocity, you can see that basically there are some file type options down here. So the default is the gridded velocity file. So this is an internal sort of binary format which is specifically there for you to export a velocity model after a certain number of iterations or on a particular grid step, and then be able to re-import that velocity model and maybe run the Tomo 3D inversion again with a finer grid step to again improve the velocity model. Similarly, the Seg-Y grid files option does a similar sort of thing in that you export it as a Seg-Y velocity model, but again it's gridded and is effective for use back in the Tomo 3D application if you want to again run some more iterations or a finer grid step. And then finally we've added a new option which is the interpolated Seg-Y files option, which basically interpolates the velocity model you've created rather than from being on the grid locations that you've run the Tomo 3D inversion, but interpolates that velocity model onto your geometry grid inline cross lines, and then you can use it for as part of your depth velocity model for depth imaging or whatever else you might want to use that velocity grid for. Any questions about this, please do let us know. Finally, the last update to the Claritas software is a new utility to convert Seg-Y velocity models from Seg-Y into the Claritas NMO 3D format, which can be used by the image suite modules such as image K3T and image K3D. As sometimes the handling of the ASCII NMO 3D format is more efficient than working from a Seg-Y file. So if we go to the Utils drop-down menu of the launcher and velocities, and we select convert Seg-Y velocity file to NMO 3D format, it will bring up the interface for this new utility. You can see here, I then select a velocity file, go to the velocities directory and select the Raptor vels, and then I'm going to output it to my NMO file name I want. I can define the inline increment that I want to output. That can be every inline, every 10th inline. Crossline increments again can be every crossline or every 10th crossline. Time increment again is a user's choice, so again can be every sample. And then I can show the result in isovels and also display the output in the log file that this application creates. So if I click OK, that's the log file, if you like, that tells you what it's doing. That's the isovels application showing the resulting NMO velocity file that we've created. And again, I can go here and click display NMO buffer and look at the NMO 3D format velocity model. So you can see that it's got primary key, secondary key based on an inline crossline and the list of velocities values. So that's the final part of the jigsaw for this release. Hope you find this valuable, and any questions about this utility, please do let us know.